I see my car going like 120 miles an hour. And I was like, what's going on here? And I told my wife, I'm like, is my car in the garage? She goes, no, it's not. Because I thought it's a technology error, some problem. Well, come to find out my son has been driving my car 120 miles an hour. So I installed the device in his car. I put a maximum speed, and now every time a car goes above that speed, I get a ping. So I think that technology saved my son's life, really, because outside of that, I'd never know that he's driving that fast.
Today, I'm excited to speak with Sam Mahrouq, CEO of Ikon Technologies, a tech company born out of an 11 rooftop dealership group. Sam is a fascinating founder and has built an enterprise around his businesses. We discuss how he's been able to scale up his auto group to over 11 dealerships and millions in sales, and discuss the aha moment that led him to founding a tech company focused on customer retention at dealerships that's doing over $55 million in sales, plus much more. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Uber for Business, Lot Links, and of course, Ikon Technologies. And now let's get into the show. Sam Mahrouq on the CDG podcast. Sam, welcome.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited for this conversation. We have a pretty interesting connection because someone, Mr. J Law, who works here, used to work for you. And so that was actually how this the entire introduction came to be, which I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Jay is a great guy. He worked with us right from the very beginning. Lots of funny stories there. He really started when early in 2020 with COVID. I don't know how we managed to fly and come and meet us, and with a mask on, we had the interview. But
the rest is history.
He's a great guy. Yeah, there's history.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to come to you for those stories off the record,
almost, Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Well, Sam, you're an interesting individual, and I'll explain why I say that. Let me just start off with a couple bullet points here, right? A prominent dollar rent-a-car franchise, 11 car dealerships, not one, not two, 11 car dealerships, an MEI auto finance company, and of course, a tech company called Ikon Technologies. But let's not forget the most important part, a ranch in Texas called Moon River Ranch, which this is what I was most curious about, because when I heard that you have a ranch, a 550-acre resort with animals and stuff, I was like, wow. I was like, you have all these successful companies. How did you get into the ranch business?
Oh, well, the ranch was a funny story. I asked a friend of mine to, find me. I love nature and I love animals, and I initially wanted to have a ranch for me to just get away get away over on weekends. And we went and we looked at a place in Waco, Texas, about a couple hours away from here. And we saw this beautiful, amazing ranch that has an actual Western town in it, like an entire, a lodge, a little feed store, a chapel, a barn. I mean, all kinds of. And it was used as a venue for corporate retreats and family reunions and weddings and things like that. So I fell in love with it, but the last thing I wanted to do is buy a business to relax. I'm trying to find something to relax away from my other businesses, and I ended up inheriting a business to relax away from my businesses. So the ranch at that time was just a small venue. Yet, still had a staff and had all these buildings, so you had to keep that going. We ended up expanding it and tripling the business. So now it's got a couple $1 million in annual revenue with over 15 people and 500 animals and exotic animals and safari rides and all kinds of stuff. You should go. It's moonriverranch.com. Check it out on the website. No, Yossi, I'd love to invite you to Texas at some point, and try your.
I've heard a story, so I'll definitely take you up on that. Is there any discount for our dealers over here, or no discounts?
Yeah, well, they give a discount.
Yeah, lots of dealers listening right now, so you never know. Maybe we could do some retreats there.
I'm a dealer through and through, and I know all the stuff that we go through in our life. So I should definitely create a very solid discount for dealers only.
Wow. So Sam, before we get into your insight, because you, like I said, you are a large dealer who have founded a very successful automotive tech company, among other things. And I am curious about your insight that led to that, why you've done that. Again, and you've been successful, which takes it another notch, because I'm curious to know what that just transition has been like for you. Before we get to that though, can you just start us out with a brief overview of your story? How did you get into this world, the car world, kind of your upbringing? Would love to know your background.
I started in the car business by total coincidence. It's a funny story. When I was 18, I was born in Amman, Jordan. I inherited the trade or the entrepreneur bug from my father, who was actually, my father was a school teacher, but he would dabble with the stock market. So sometimes when in Amman, if it's cold, and usually after school I would just walk home. But when it's cold, I'll just wait in the library of the school for a couple of hours and wait to take a ride with my dad home because I didn't want to walk. Well, my dad has a habit of stopping by the stock market there. And mind you, this is about 50 years ago in a third world country. So the stock market was not like the way we envision it now. Back then, if I remember, it was like a little bleachers, a big blackboard. And when you want to buy, and there's about 50 or 60 companies. And when you want to buy and sell, you just write down on a note and give it to your broker, who will just go, I need to buy 100 of, shares of this company, and somebody else would just come in and sell, so.
Wow.
And of course, all that to me was like very intriguing. And so I learned, and my dad would just, park me on the side and he'll do his things. And then on our way back home, I'll be asking him, what did you do there? How many stocks did you buy and all that? So, I'm a little inquisitive. So one time, I think one of the stories that resonates is he had bought 100 shares or something like that in a certain company. And I would rush every night to watch the news and see what the price was for that stock. And one time it has gone, and I would calculate, and it's almost as much as his monthly salary. So to me, it was like, wow, you can actually make money, that much money in one day, without really having to clock in, 8 or 10 hours a day and wait for your check at the end of the pay cycle. And that was a revelation. This is how I got into this, being an entrepreneur. And ever since then, I've always wanted to buy and sell and make money. And so in college, I needed a way to make money, and I didn't know what to do. And the first car I bought was a VW Rabbit, 1982 VW Rabbit diesel. Lo and behold, I opened the glove compartment, and then there's a receipt of $800. The guy had bought it for $800, sold it to me for like $1,600 or $1,800. So I'm like, wow, he just made $1,000, selling me this car. And back then, $1,000 was a lot of money. So I liked cars. I've always had pictures of cars in my room as a kid, and I've always been intrigued with all kinds of cars. So I said I could do this, and that's how I contracted the car bug. I started to go to the auctions and buy cars and recondition them and selling them.
So tell us a little bit about your automotive journey, right? How did you start in the business? I mean, clearly you said wholesaling, it seems like, buying, selling cars. How did you scale? If you can give us like a little just synopsis of your journey in the car business and scale to 11 dealerships. So
in college, I was really retailing. I would just buy a car and fix it, and then place an ad in. Back then, it used to be the magazine, so you would take pictures and just post it. And I would sell one, every other month, every 2 months, making $1,000. Now, I had a brother who was a doctor in Saudi Arabia, and I went time to visit him. And over there, I've started being a car guy. I was asking about, how much these cars there. And a lot of them are American cars, your big V8s, the Chevy Caprice, the Crown Victorias, the big Suburbans and Tahoes. And I was just startled. They were almost double the price here. I assumed there is taxes or things like that. Well, there's nothing. There's no taxes other than the shipping. That's it. So that's how I convinced my brother that, we should start this trade. I would buy cars from there, ship it to him, and he'll sell it.
Oh, wow. So you were doing exporting.
I was doing exporting. I started that in my second year in college. Maybe I was, 20 years old. By the time I graduated at 22 or 23, I was exporting 20 to 30 cars a month, averaging $1,000 a car. So.
And what year was this, Sam? When was this?
This is in 1990. So that was 40 some years ago.
And just like a quick pause on the story though, do you know today, like what is the market like for exporting? I'm just curious what you know, if you know anything about it today.
I don't think that market still exists at this point. Back then, there was a big market for used cars shipped to the Middle East. In fact, to other parts of the world. I shipped cars to China, to Russia, to Africa, but primarily I was shipping them to the Middle East. But I've exited as soon as I graduated college. Maybe 5 years later, I built my dealerships in here and I focused on that. I stopped doing the export. I think that market subsided quite a bit since then.
Tell me more about just the growth of your dealerships, right? So what type of dealerships do you have? Are these independent, franchise, a mix?
Most of my dealerships are independent locations. I had participated or was partner in a franchise in a couple of franchise dealerships, and it was run by my friend Walid Jelani, who was handling the new car businesses. But I focused on used cars, and I started obviously with one location, then another, then another. I was doing retail at the subprime. A lot of it was subprime. The funny part was how I got ultimately into the in-house financing. I would have trade-ins, obviously $2,000-3,000 trade-ins that I would send to the auction, and I couldn't sell them. So I decided, you know what, all these customers that have $1,000, $2,000 down that I can't get approved. Why don't I just put him on these cars and try my luck with them? So I started just selling my trades at the beginning as an in-house finance. I would take almost what I have in the car as a down payment, and then the rest is profit. So that's how I initially got in the in-house financing. And then I started to just have two branches, retail and in-house finance. Gradually, we decided to just completely focus on in-house financing back almost 15 years ago. Right now, out of the 11 locations, we average about 60 to 80 cars a month from each location. So we're in the 700 units a month. We're selling about 700 cars. That's obviously quite, it's a lot harder to sell to find and recondition a $6,000 to $10,000 cars than a $60,000 cars, because there's so much work has to be done in order to get to survive the notes. So building up to that many dealerships took quite a lot of logistics and thinking and being very involved in every little details of how do you do things in mass production.
Sam, I'm curious to know for any other entrepreneurs out there, or dealers, frankly, that have been thinking about some, ancillary businesses or maybe diversifying from their core business. How do you run your enterprise? This isn't a question I actually even plan on asking you, but, do you really focus on like the synergies between the companies? Obviously, financing and the dealership is like a direct hand in hand. They work together. You also have the rental car franchise. You also have Ikon Technologies, which powers dealerships, logistics operations. Do all these reinforce each other, improve margins, right? Reduce overhead, etc.? How do you think about it?
There's certain departments, like the HR department, the accounting department, it works for the entire group. So in that sense, you can scale up. But each business is independent on its own. And the key part is to hire the right people, give them the vision, and then trust them to continue with it without constantly breathing down their necks and of how the job is done. So if you find the hardest part obviously is finding the right people that and motivate them to continue with it. And I've been so far extremely lucky. I've had people around me from almost the very beginning. Some of my managers at my dealerships started as salespeople. Mike Smith and Mike Hammond and all these guys been with me for 25 years, from sales to sales managers to general managers managing a group of stores. So finding the right people, taking care of them, they'll take care of you.
In between everything you're doing and all the heat of auto retail, which can be super draining, as we all know, what inspired you to launch a tech company, Ikon?
My story with Ikon is really started when I did that buy here, pay here 20 years ago. I didn't know what that business entails. And then, but I knew, I got 2,000-3,000 in a car, and if somebody give me 2,000, I can risk that extra 1,000. But what if they don't pay me? So I didn't understand collections and collection departments and all that. The only thing I understood is, how do I get my car back if they don't pay me? And then I did the research of, well, there's these devices called GPS. You slap it in there, and if they don't pay you, you just know where the car and bring it back. So that's how I started with this business. Now, as I acquired these devices, I started to see there's so much more to them than it's an asset recovery. Back then I had maybe 4 or 5 dealerships, and they were in close proximity to each other. So salespeople would just drive one car from a location to other to pick up another car, go to their locations, and my cars were all over the place, and it was almost impossible to control.
I've posted about this problem. This episode is brought to you by Uber for Business. Courtesy transportation is no longer a nice to have, it's a need to have. Last year, we ran a poll on X asking our followers how they prefer to get home from a dealership after dropping off a car for service or maintenance. 31% of respondents answered that they preferred an Uber ride. Using Central from Uber for Business, you can request an on-demand ride for your customers even if they don't have the Uber app. Coordinate one-way or round-trip Uber rides, monitor trips in real time, set spend caps, and generate reports in one dashboard. Uber for Business is an easy way to provide an experience customers love while reducing the costs associated with maintaining shuttles and limiting the liability of loaner vehicles. If you plan to attend the upcoming NADA Expo in New Orleans, stop by and meet the Uber for Business team at booth 6952. Again, that's booth 6952 to learn how they can help you drive customer loyalty one ride at a time. You can also visit t.uber.com/CDG auto today to learn more, or visit the link in the show notes below. I would say there's more tech on the market now, and obviously Ikon is solving this problem, but it wasn't always the case. And it's a huge pain point, just knowing where that vehicle is at all times. And we'll talk more about it, but I agree in a big way.
Absolutely. But that's where I started to think, well, these devices that I'm putting in my customers' cars to tell me where the location, I can just put them in all my inventory, and now I know where my car's at. And if I sell it, I'll buy here, pay here, it stays with it. If I don't, I would just remove it. So that's how but the industry did not tackle that. I mean, so I was, every time I would go to conventions, and all these GPS companies are attacking me, trying to sell me GPSs, because I was a big buyer at that point. I started to tell him, why don't you guys create an inventory solution with these devices? I mean, not because almost everybody I knew back then, and I'm talking about 15 years ago plus, GPSs were used, for fleets, to track fleets, or for the buy in our business, just for the buy here, pay here. And I started to promote and telling these companies, why don't you create a solution for the new car stores, for large inventory stores, to keep up with their inventory, to understand where the inventory. And they were like, no, they would never pay us. Yes, they will pay you, but and they could sell it also to the customer ultimately to become as a theft recovery device. So I started actually, implanting that sort of model.
There's this famous line by Jeff Bezos where he talks about turning your cost centers into profit centers. Mm-hmm. And you sort of epitomized that here, right? All these things you're spending money on, whether it be, financing contracts, right? Rental cars. In this case, GPSs, you're a huge buyer, taking that and actually having the vision drive commitment to transform that into a profit center, but along the way, create a better tool that actually meets your needs. Correct. Would you say that's more or less correct? But Sam, have you done that intentionally, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the thing about it, Yossi, is I always understood most of my solutions, whether it's Ikon or, we've got another technology company we're fixing to roll called CarCard. It's a collection platform, or an insurance company, Empire, a CPI product. All of them came from the ideas of, I am, as a user, as a dealer, needing these products, and there's nothing in the market out there tackles my needs. So I knew if I create a product that helps me as a dealer, there's a whole lot of other dealers would see that, and it would help them, and it would be beneficial for them as much as it is for me. So most of my solutions, as they were customized to me, I'm thinking I put my dealer hat on as being a dealer, and then I put the other hat on. How how do you match the challenges that dealers have with a technology or a product solution? So as I utilize them, I went to market with a lot of these products, but I still use them for my businesses.
Can you tell us what's the elevator pitch for Ikon Technologies? Can you just give us like the overview of that?
So most GPS devices are used for locating a device, and then it's sold as a theft recovery. The way I perceived this device, when you install it on a car, it really creates, it can tell you a whole lot more information about just location. It's like a gateway. The car can start talking to you, whether about the location or about if the tires are low or if the check engine light is on or if a car is in a crash or the way it drives, the behavior. You can transmit that information and collect that data and create some sense out of it, and then ultimately that sense becomes like a sign language. If you understand it, you know what the car and the car drivers need. So that's basically the concept behind Ikon. It's how do you make some sense from the customer behavior in ways where you allows the dealer to help them. Example, if you're driving a car and it stops on the highway, well, there's a reason why it stops, right? I mean, if the highway is 60, 70 miles an hour, but the car is showing 0 miles an hour, that would be a concerning issue. So we wanted to understand, all right, well, maybe as a dealer, I should send a message to my customer to tell him, are you okay? Do you want me to send you a roadside assistant? In many cases, we could actually tell if the car had a flat tire or had an accident or has whatever situation. So a dealer can be proactively out there helping that customer. Now, we don't expect dealers to do it. That's what Ikon is about, is to white label the technology on behalf of the dealers and to create that intelligence to understand the consumer's need, and then on behalf of the dealer, provide that service.
Oh, okay. So you're dealing with the roadside, because I don't want to deal with the roadside.
Exactly. No, not the dealer. We would be dealing with roadside.
There's enough things to deal with. So all right, that was good. Yeah. So it's full service. Yeah. Well, tell me more about that. Like, what do dealers come to you for? Like, what's the core problem you solve, right? Or I know you solve multiple problems, but if you stack rank it, like, what is the core problem that you're solving for dealerships today and for yourself?
The GPS companies resolve certain problems. I wanted to create a much wider and bigger solutions. So a lot of the GPS companies right now, they basically either help you with managing the inventory or help you generate as a dealer or generating profit by selling it as a theft recovery. But to me, there's way more. We provide those as a byproduct of the real concept of Ikon. Hear me out for a minute here. I wanted, as a dealer, we spend all kinds of money bringing customers into our dealership. We sell them a car, then they go and then disappear in the ether. I know a lot of dealers act like, oh yeah, no, I know how to reach out to them and I market to them or whatever, but really, reality, they just go away. There's no tool to actually stay in touch with them. So what we did with Ikon is we wanted to provide a solution where at the dealership, when they buy the Ikon Theft Recovery, we white label that app to the dealer. We brand it to the dealer. What that creates is a scenario where a customer just bought an app and he's going to use it, but it's white labeled to the dealer. So they're looking at the dealer's logo, they're looking at the dealer's inventory, they're setting the service appointment through that app, and since they paid money for it, obviously, they're not going to just delete it. So how much that is worth to a dealer? On top of that, so it resolves their inventory. We help them resolve the inventory. We generate money for them by selling it as a real back-end or F&I product. But for the next, if a customer bought it for 5 or 7 years, for the next 5 or 7 years, a customer is using that technology through the dealer's app. And on top of that, our technology is collecting data on the consumer, like I mentioned, if they stop on the highway, but that's one scenario. Every time a car needs an oil change, we know that because we know the mileage and we know the information from the OBD. So we will send the dealer an offer coming from the dealer to the customer with a discount and an ability to set that appointment and come back to the dealership. So we're trying to create that connection and retention back to the dealership through this technology. It's a full suite solution. It's a solution at the dealership level with inventory. It's a profit center. It's a long-term retention tool.
You basically took something that was traditionally used for lot management and stolen vehicle recovery, and you said, this is great technology. I have additional use cases for this. Oh, and by the way, it can help me with retaining customers, increasing that lifetime value. It's a win-win-win. I'm getting a lot more usage out of this technology. So that makes total sense.
Yossi, one thing very important also to mention is that nowadays all the OEMs are getting into this connected app technology, but they're basically stealing that data, the dealer data. They're taking the customers' names and addresses and to keep it for them. And in the future, obviously, they're going to try and get to bypass the dealer and get to the customer. So for me, that was a big no-no. I mean, that customer should stay for the dealers. Why should you as a dealer promote OnStar or FordPass or any other third party to steal that data away from you? Why shouldn't that data remain to the dealer themselves and create a platform to send back that customer back to the dealer that sold the car?
I want to ask you a different question. I have a pretty good hunch here, so let's see if I'm right or not. Is this business, have you fully funded this business with your money? Like, do you have other investors, or is this fully funded by you?
100% by me.
All right. Yeah, I figure that, and I'll tell you why. There's there's a level of liberty that I enjoy in this business, my business, which is that because, we're not externally funded with no institutional capital or anything, it's me, we can do things that are typically, haven't been done in the industry. For example, all of our content, just like a small example, it's all free, right? And again, we have a lower cost structure, whatever. So when I was reading through your company and your notes, I saw that you offer lots of free features for dealers. There's no upfront cost. There's a consignment model. It's you align the incentives with the dealer very, very well. And in my brain, when I see that, you're taking a very long-term perspective on the dealer kind of vendor partner relationship. You're not trying to just clip the dollar right now, make your earnings the next 3 months. You really thought of it long-term. So I don't know if I overthought that entire decision-making process, but I'm just curious, what led you to that type of pricing, which I think is super smart. I love free because free is the best way to grow.
Absolutely. And then, if I were to have investors, they would have allowed me to do that. I mean, as a dealer, I customize the product to make me happy if I was a dealer. If somebody comes in to me to sell me GPSs and I got 1,000 cars or 500 cars, whatever, and strike a $50,000 or $100,000 check and not even knowing whether this is going to work or not, it's a very risky deal. So we de-risked that, and we wanted to present this as almost like a partnership. Dealers, all you got to do is commit to me that you're going to install this. Once we train you, you're going to continue the installation. And right now our model, actually, the dealer doesn't even have to install. We're hiring third parties to the installation and the continuous installation. But we want dealers to make sure they benefit from this technology and they sell it and generate money. But it's entirely free. They don't have to pay money up front. They don't have to do anything different in terms of hiring staff to just run this. We will provide them with inventory. We provide a third party to do the installation for them, and the continuous installation. We train them how to sell it. I've always myself hated selling etch or some of these nitrogen tires, it just didn't resonate well with me. These are product we want to sell. We want to make money, obviously. I'm not in the business of not making money, but I really want to sell something I feel good about. I feel like the customer will actually use. And that's why I wanted to bring a product that would replace some of that stuff that doesn't make money. But this is a product that customer will use. The dealer will use, we recover cars almost on daily basis for people who the car were stolen. There's even a good story I heard the other day where a lady who was senile but was lost. They couldn't find her, and the children of that lady called us to say, "We know that there's a device in there. Can you tell us where the location?" And they were able to find their mother through that technology. So that really makes you feel good that there is this technology is actually usable and helps people. I myself, one time I was sitting at the ranch and I see my car going like 120 miles an hour. And I was like, what's going on here? And I called my wife. I'm like, is my car in the garage? She goes, no, it's not. Because I thought it's a technology error, some problem. Well, come to find out, my son has been driving my car 120 miles an hour. And of course, that was, yeah. So I installed a device in his car. I put a maximum speed, and now every time a car goes above that speed, I get a ping. So I think that technology saved my son's life, really, because outside of that, I'd never know that he's driving that fast.
Is your son in the business? Does he work with you?
He's a product. He works with product for me, and he's got a couple of other kind of like an independent product technology.
Nice.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by LotLinks. It's time for a machine-assisted dealership. As you know, AI technology is transforming our world and changing the competitive landscape of our industry. That's why LotLinks is always improving and perfecting their machines. The LotLinks machine uses unparalleled data and deep learning technology to predict your next best move. LotLinks' predictive analytics engine can help you outmaneuver the competition and work smarter, not harder. The LotLinks machine helps dealers promote smarter, price with precision, procure more effectively, and gain unparalleled market clarity. See your inventory, shopper, and market data the way the machine sees it and discuss your dealership's goals for 2025 by visiting lotlinks.com. That's LOTLINX.com, or clicking the link in the show notes below. Well, this is a bit of a tangent. What do you think about children in the business in general? What's your take on that?
Well, it's funny. I think, when my children were kids and I would take them to my dealerships, I wanted them to go and wash cars and change oil and do these things, and they didn't want to get their hands dirty, so they didn't want to really.
It didn't resonate with them.
It didn't resonate with them, and now that we have a technology company, they want to be with the technology company. But so it's just kids are always, they look up for their parents, but they're not necessarily want to do what the hard work that it takes to make it.
Yeah. There was a close follower of the podcast who emailed me one time. I think I actually spoke about this, but he asked me, he's like, hey, I'm just curious, like, how did your dad raise you in the business and whatnot? And I told him, I would say the one thing that really stuck with me since being a child was when my father told me, he said he never forced me to be there, to do anything at the dealership. Mm-hmm. Now, I always felt like indebted in a way where I had to be there regardless. Mm-hmm. And, for whatever reason, I felt that way. But he never forced me to do any of that. And I think that was a big part of just my motivation, that like I had choices, essentially. I mean, I could go out, and I did. In college, I applied for internships with banks and whatnot. And I ended up still sticking with the car business. But it wasn't forced upon me. So I think that was a pretty good formula in hindsight.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the car business it's either you love it or you can't, stand it. So it's almost like in the DNA, and it's hard to make someone, like it if they just didn't. And for whatever reason, my kids just didn't. They did not want to be in that business. They want to be on their own. So
Sam, can you give us some context of your scale with Ikon? Right, I know this business has gotten really big within dealers across the country. There's, if you can, any numbers, dealership count. I'm just curious.
Yes, we started. We went to market full speed in 2020. And it took me 2-3 years to really build up the technology. So in 17 all the way to 20, we were just building the technology, and we had a few dealers here, trial and errors on 19. 2020 was the very first year we went full blown to market, and of course COVID hit, and at the beginning COVID was a little bit of, nobody knew how to react to it at least the first 6 months or 8 months. And when the incentives of the money started to come in, and it was ultimately being very good to the car business. But we, in 2020, Ikon was a little, we did not grow as much as we would. However, we doubled in 21, and then 22 was doubling 21. So literally we've been doubling every year. And we're now, as of December of last year, I don't have the sales for January, but we're going to be about a $55 million annual sales. Hopefully, if we continue that legacy this year, we'll break 100 million by the end of this year. Yeah, so it's been a hell of a journey. I mean, it's we have about 500 rooftops, a little less than that, but they range all over the country. We have dealers in Hawaii, we have dealers in Puerto Rico, and have dealers in Alaska. So it's been a blessing.
And in addition, you mentioned that you provide dealers with their own branded app. Of course, the devices. Jay mentioned that you added key tracking. Of course, you have the after sale marketing. You're really doing so many things through this one piece of advice. Like you said, it's kind of the gateway. What's next, right? You're always looking to solve that next problem for dealerships. What's your vision? What are you working on now?
Well, let's talk about the key tracking. I mean, you're a car guy and you work at dealerships. I mean, was there any day in a normal life of a dealership that someone is not looking for a car or looking for a key? I mean, to me, it started as you got to resolve the basics. I mean, and there is technology there that can resolve these. You just have to make it accessible, not only just accessible, but easy to adapt, There's key machines, but a lot of dealerships don't, you come in and then you'll see keys on top of the key machine instead of inside, because it requires, you got to have each one to have a setup, and with a high turnover of a dealership, you're not really setting up people correctly, and people start using each other's password and all that stuff. So really, at the end of the day, it works sometimes. Majority of the time, it becomes just a holding for the keys. The right way to do it is to really create something, a little keychain that attach it to the key, and through your app you can just locate the car. And through Bluetooth technology and gateways in the dealership, you can find where the keys are. So to me, that was a no-brainer. Why don't we just create that technology? But again, it becomes, are they going to be consistent at the dealership installing? So we took that away from them, and our third party usually is the company that comes in, see all the new cars, install the device in the car and in the keys, and all the dealership has to do is just, download, each person download their own dealer app and then find where the car is, where the key is, and don't have to mess with the installation and uninstall and all that good stuff. So that's just solving these basics at dealerships and creating the obstacles that usually comes with the day-to-day of the installation and the installation usually is what I try to do here, and it's working. It's working. The fact that we're doubling every year, it's resonating with dealers, and we're resolving, I think, real problems to them. I know it's helping me out in my dealerships, of course.
Yeah. Where do you glean? I'm curious, where do you glean your insights? Is it like when you think about future product, right? Is it literally top down from you? Hey, this is annoying as hell. Let's fix this. Or is this more of like a bottoms up approach? You go to the dealership, you talk to the team, like what's the problem? Because I have to imagine at this point, you clearly can't be at the dealership at that much anymore. You have all these businesses. So how do you actually glean these insights? Like you just mentioned a really good point, right? The keys that get left on top of the key machine. Like everyone knows that happens. And obviously some stores better than others. Some have better processes and controls. Regardless, we know what it's like when you're doing, 20 cars on a Saturday or something, and you're super busy, and it gets dysfunctional and processes start to break. So how do you get your insights about what's next?
Well, I mean, a lot of my information comes from the fact that I performed every aspect of a dealership. I mean, I started, like I told you, Yossi, from selling 1 and 2 cars to ultimately wholesaling. When I did the export, then my small dealerships of 20 cars a month, and then we expanded it to sell 50, and then another dealership. So I kind of, took every single role, from being at the auction, buying cars, to, sometimes on Thursday, as soon as the cars come in from the auction, take off my shirts and go with the porters to clean these cars so I can get them ready for the weekend, for the Friday, Saturday sale. Because I didn't have but one porter, and I needed to get more, all these 7 or 8 cars ready. So I've performed every action that should be performed or need to be performed, short of taking engines off and putting engines back on. And then, of course, the expansion from one store to another, and ultimately having a staff of over, just for my dealership, 200, 250, you have to create a scalability plan. What worked for you as a one or single dealerships now doesn't work when you have a group of stores. You have to create ways to scale things up, and you trial and error. So my very extensive experience in doing every aspect and working every aspect of a dealership kind of got me where I wish we can have this, or I wish I can have that tool or this tool, or is there a tool that can solve these issues? And when there's not, in my mind, I was always, I'll figure something to fix these issues, and if it works for me, it'll work for others. So that's where I get a lot of my ideas and inspirations.
This episode is brought to you by CDG Recruiting. The Car Dealership Guy platform has direct access to thousands of skilled professionals in the dealership and automotive industries. And so, building on top of our free industry job board, we've launched CDG Recruiting, a hands-on white glove automotive recruiting service. Whether you're looking to fill roles in dealership management, the C-suite, F&I, fixed ops, auto tech, or SaaS, we take the hassle out of hiring by doing the heavy lifting for you. It's easy. Start by submitting a confidential talent request on our website. Next, we connect you with a dedicated talent expert who will thoroughly understand your unique needs. And finally, we present you with top-notch candidates who are ready to drive your business forward. And here's the best part. We vet and screen every candidate for you so you don't have to. And with our placement guarantee, hiring through CDG Recruiting is 100% worry-free. Collectively, our team has decades of experience and has successfully placed over 1,000 roles in the automotive industry, so you know you're in good hands. If you're ready to find your next rockstar employee, try CDG Recruiting today by visiting cdgrecruiting.com or clicking the link in the show notes below. Again, that's cdgrecruiting.com. Is there anything on your mind for, next tool? I mean, is there anything that's bothering you nowadays that you're just like, oh man, I got to solve this problem?
Well, with Ikon, I think we're still scratching the surface.
Your job is not done with Ikon.
No, not at all.
That's
we're getting venture capital left and right trying to buy the company and giving us some really, crazy valuations, and sometimes it's tempting, but then a lot of times
change the URL to Ikon.ai and your valuation will double.
Well, I mean, believe it or not, that's what's next coming. The
AI.
idea was, to me, is to, these devices, you can get so much data. And if you make sense out of that data through, a layer AI, you can start to know every little scenarios and every little need that the customer needs. I mean, imagine a customer driving through a hailstorm. You can almost know that because you can connect the data of the car going through a hailstorm. And then you can really tell the customers, come on, or take a picture of the car and I'll give you an estimate of what it takes to fix that car, and schedule the appointments on my app. So the idea is to create, several sources of data, layer AI to understand when a customer needs the dealer, and then put the dealer in a more proactive way through sending a message to them that if you encounter this situation, schedule this appointment so I can come, so I can help you. Dealers don't obviously do all that. It's our platform doing it on their behalf.
Sam Mahrouq. Of course, we'll put the link in the show notes below if any dealers are interested in learning more. IkonTechnologies.com. Sam, you're doing some incredible things. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, we're going to be at an NADA soon, I guess next week. And I understand you're going to be there too.
Well, by this airing, it's this week, or I should say it's today.
Or
tomorrow.
Okay, great. So you're going to air it. Yeah. Well, that's great. So it'll be fresh in a lot of people's mind. We're going to be at booth 5835. And I'd love to see you and see whoever wants to come in and, just talk more about Ikon and hear people's thoughts and ideas of what else, what other challenges they have that we can fix.
Bonus points if they mention the ranch or your parenting tips.
Anyone that comes in can, will get a % discount to the ranch.
Done. Love
They
it.
can ride horses and do their safari
amazing.
trips for free.
Love it. Sam,
When are you coming? When are
incredible
you coming to the
conversation.
ranch?
I have to come to the ranch now because I also love animals just like you. And it's Jay says it's incredible. So we have to maybe we'll do a retreat over there. Maybe we'll do like a team retreat. It could be fun.
That's great. We've got zebras, wildebeest. I've got over 500 exotic animals and just roaming in a 500 acre. We have safari Hummers that we painted in the safari scheme, and people just drive around and look at these animals just like they're in Africa.
And I'm over here contemplating whether we should put chickens in the backyard. You over here running 500 animals. I love it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Good.
I have about 50 chickens if you want some,
Really?
all are organic eggs and
Yeah, we've been thinking about it. Put some
Yeah.
chickens in the backyard, get some more eggs and stuff. Dude, we eat
Yeah.
eggs over here. Whenever my dad stops by, he sees the amount of bananas and eggs in the house. He thinks that he thinks we're animals. I mean, we buy bananas like 4 big bunches at a time because everyone eats at least one a day. We're like monkeys.
Yeah. I'll tell you. I mean, there's a certain level of gratification when you know you're eating out of stuff that you're raising, out of these animals that
I know.
roam the earth and give you all this good stuff. So
Yep.
my ranch is really not. I mean, it is a business, but it's for personal gratification, just like a lot of the things I do. I mean, whether it's Ikon or some of these other things. Obviously, the objective is to make money, but to me,
You want to have fun.
I have fun and solve problems and hopefully, making this world a better place.
I love it. What an ending. Sam, thanks for coming on. Seriously, my pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.